Well, I am Aliza Sherman, the CEO of Ellementa, and this is one of our monthly webinars. This month we have a lot going on. It's pretty fantastic, but this is the one I've really been waiting for because I get to speak again with my co-author, Dr. Junella Chin, co-author of our book. And look how earmarked it is. Cannabis and CBD for Health and Wellness. I am thrilled to be here. This is such an important topic. It's not talked about enough. This beginning portion of the program, I just wanted you to see us. Hi, June. How are you? Good to see you. And we then go into a slide presentation portion. The beginning, I'll just sort of intro who we are, what we do, why we do it, then move into the meat of the program, which is really June, Dr. Chin, taking over and filling us in on this estrogen cannabis connection, which is fascinating. And then we move on to sort of the closing of the program. So for anyone who hasn't attended one of these before, it moves in stages, sort of like a 3-act play. And at this point, I believe, Erica, you're gonna have to remind me, we're gonna shut off our video. I'm gonna pull up and share my screen. Did I forget any of those cues, those things?
Maybe tell them to stay to the end, and there's some good stuff.
Yeah, that's in the slides. That's in
the slides. Okay, you're good.
You're good.
You're good. You're set.
All right, fantastic. So now pressing a couple of little magic buttons to share the screen. We will actually shut off our video for the moment. June, you and I should turn off our video and share the screen to get right into our program. Thank you, everybody. First, I want to thank some of our sponsors. What's really interesting, since it was the estrogen cannabis connection, and I've been recently talking to a lot of companies that have products specifically geared toward women, cannabis products and CBD products, meaning women's health, women's sexual wellness, and fascinating, I believe Toca is based in, I want to say based in Puerto Rico as well. CBD and lube and sexual health products, organic, high quality. It's just this really interesting company. They've sent me some stuff. I'll hold up the bottles later when I'm back on video. Haven't tried them yet, but certainly interested in trying. Anyone who's been going through perimenopause or menopause knows that one of the side effects is a lot of issues around our, just around sex. So that's a topic we often talk about in February. And actually, June was our guest expert this past February, and I'm going to, of course, invite you again to be that. But because of estrogen, it just really seemed like a fit. So I wanted to thank Toca for not only sponsoring this, but offering a giveaway, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. High on Love out of Canada. Shout out to Canada. What's interesting about the products, so these are also sensuous products, for vaginal dryness, discomfort, decreased libido. And the products, what's interesting about a company, first of all, they're women owned, both of these companies, which I think is awesome. But this one in particular, they have to, because of legality, have 2 different lines. So the line that we get here down in, the product line we get down here in the States will be hemp seed oil with all kinds of other herbs and ingredients for enhancing, promoting circulations and relaxation, hydration. And then on the other side, if you're in Canada, you also get the benefit of CBD, I believe. So this is a really lovely, lovely line, beautiful. Everything's pink, which is my favorite color. So thank you also to High on Love. And thank you, Giovanna. Giovanna has been a sponsor of our webinars, I think since the very beginning. They make teas, CBD infused teas formulated for women's health. So there's a lot of sort of primrose and other kinds of herbal ingredients formulated specifically for women. If you are in Canada, we cannot ship this product to you. So just letting you know, because first and foremost, here's why we're here. we want to empower you with better information about cannabis and CBD, or really all the cannabinoids of cannabis, for health and wellness. And we also want to introduce you to our community. If you're not familiar with Ellementa, just wanted to fill you in very quickly so you know who we are and where we're coming from. But first, this is what Erica was mentioning. At the end of this webinar, we are giving away some products from High on Love, from Toca, and if anyone knows Spanish, that means touch, 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 and from Giovanna. And again, if you're in Canada, we can't ship Giovanna, so we'll probably send you a sort of a replacement gift if you happen to be the winner and you're from Canada. So stick around for the end of this webinar and we will draw a name randomly from all the registrants. We want to help you on your wellness journey. This is about wellness. I often say we're not medical professionals, but Dr. Junella Chin is. However, to make sure you take everything we say not as personal recommendations for you. We are not diagnosing you. We are not telling you exactly what you should do. You need your own guidance, but we are here to help and to connect you with support if you need that. We're all about education and empowerment. If you haven't been to an Ellementa gathering, we have these in-person gatherings in cities across North America and also in Jamaica and soon in Puerto Rico and overseas. We are about to launch overseas as well. So it's very exciting. And these are wonderful, welcoming, safe spaces where you can feel comfortable talking openly, not just about cannabis and CBD, but about your personal health and your life situation, because you may be caregiving for a loved one. We also want to lead you to quality products. We do our very best to make sure that at least one of us, if not several of us, have tried these products. That's why I was mentioning Toca. My husband's out of town, by the way, which however, I will definitely try these products, and I have tried some of these other products. So we want to make sure that we know what it tastes like, smells like, feels like, what it does. And again, it's individual to you. So we're not telling you how it's going to affect you. We're just telling you how it might affect someone or us. So that's one of the things we want to do, is connect you to products you can trust, because there's so many things out there now. I've told you a little bit about us, and I'm so excited to get to the program, but first I want to throw a poll up here. Actually, Erica throws the poll up. What is the female condition that you are interested in addressing when you're using cannabis or CBD, or when you're thinking about using it? Is there a specific condition that you really want to know about, how cannabis or how CBD can help? And everyone should know, of course, CBD is derived from cannabis or industrial hemp, which the hemp plant is cannabis sativa plant. But we separate that out because, as you know, CBD is being treated differently at the moment than cannabis. But what is the condition? I'll give you guys a few minutes. You can actually take this poll right now. So please take a moment, click on the one that is most important to you. And then, of course, if you are just here out of curiosity and have nothing specific to address, or multiple things to address, I should have put too many to name, because so many of us, as we go through perimenopause and menopause, well, those symptoms stack up. Okay, have we gotten a couple of votes there? Well, there we go. Yes, we have. Menopause related, perimenopause related, PMS for those still having their periods, endometriosis. You know, there's some interesting studies that are happening now, including one in Israel on endometriosis, and I think one in the UK as well. And then nothing specific. All right, well, thank you very much for answering that question. So we know what it is that you're concerned with. And if it's menopause or perimenopause, you've come to the right place. Dr. Junella Chin, or Dr. June Chin, drjunechin.com, as I've been seeing more and more. She's not just my co-author, but she is a very, very accomplished physician. She's an osteopathic physician, and she has practiced for, June, why don't you take over and fill us in? You've practiced for 15 years? as a cannabis
Yeah,
physician?
so I started my practice in California, and California legalized cannabis over 20 years ago. So I was at the right place at the right time. I did med school in San Francisco, and this allowed me to really learn about cannabis-based medicine, helped me integrate it with my medical school training. They didn't teach us any of this, the endocannabinoid system or cannabis in medical school, and we'll certainly talk about what the ECS is and the endocannabinoid system, but I had to learn everything on my own. But because California legalized it so long ago, it's changed quite a bit. I've seen it come a long way, and I've treated many, many patients, both children and adults, helping them integrate medical cannabis safely.
Hmm. Well, I have been so honored and thrilled to be your co-author. I was so glad when you said yes, you would write this book with me, and I've learned so much from you writing this book, and then when we went on our book tour and hearing you speak. So this is a topic that kept coming up, not estrogen specifically, but all of the female transitions that we go through, and you had so much good information. So we'll get to that in a moment. I'm going to go through these next slides, June. I'm going to go through them pretty quickly because these are sort of the basis and basics for what we're going to speak about, just to get us to your part of the program as quickly as possible, if that's okay with you.
Wonderful.
Okay. So I wanted to just emphasize that we're talking about plant medicine, and it doesn't always come with perfect instructions. The industry is getting better at helping us understand how to use these products, but still we're not fully understanding how they work. So as the industry does continue to mature, we'll have even better test results. We'll know how to read them in a better way. And that's one of the things that we try to teach everyone here through our webinars, is how to understand what's in these products and how those products could work. And dosing is a really big deal, but this is not like getting something off of the shelf at the drugstore over the counter and you read the instructions and taking that exact dose. It's a very individual process. It can be a slow process to get to the point of having this medicine work well for you. So that's a really important thing to consider. The endocannabinoid system, June has already mentioned, and for anyone on the call who does not know what the endocannabinoid system, here is my attempt at taking a super complex and fascinating thing and turning it into some sound bites. The endocannabinoid system is a system that lays over all of our other systems throughout our body, which includes nervous system, digestive, reproductive system, and every system we have has these receptors in it. The receptors that are most known and researched so far are called CB1 and CB2. CB2 tends to be much more in our immune system, where CB1 is throughout, these receptors are throughout our body and our brain. Now, the endocannabinoid system was discovered in 1990, and that was during research on how cannabis affects our brains and the human body. And it's not just humans who have an endocannabinoid system, it's mammals. So our pets have it, dogs, cats, I think some reptiles, birds also have endocannabinoid systems. So this plant and the chemical compounds within it can interact with our body and brain in a pretty harmonious way. And it helps, overall the system is helping to regulate our other systems. So not everyone is learning about this in medical school yet, but this is a very important system for all of the things that are going on in our bodies and our brains. So chemical compounds, the two main chemical compounds we talk about in cannabis are cannabinoids and terpenes. So cannabinoids or phytocannabinoids, which are the plant cannabinoids, are these molecules within the plant that are part of the properties that are affecting us. So the most common cannabinoid, the one we've heard about a lot, talked about a lot, is THC. And now the very ever popular CBD. These are cannabinoids, chemical compounds. There's also CBN, THCV, CBG. each of these compounds affects our bodies and our brains in different ways. So people say THC gets you high, CBD doesn't get you high. That's a really simplistic way of defining how it affects us, how these cannabinoids affect us. But an interesting thing to note is that our body also produces natural cannabinoids, and those are called endocannabinoids, endo meaning inside of the body. And our system, our endocannabinoid system, is often very depleted from stress, from pollution in the environment. And cannabinoids can nourish our endocannabinoid system and can help bring us back into balance or homeostasis. So cannabinoids are really important chemical components of cannabis. And terpenes, another one. Terpenes are not just in cannabis, they are in a lot of the foods that we eat, a lot of plants. They give food and, well, plants different properties: smell, color, taste. And so some of the really popular terpenes that we know but we haven't really named before, well, if you like lavender, but lavender contains linalool. Well, so does cannabis. Think of this almost like aromatherapy, if you will. Mango, this is what's pictured here on the slide. Mango has myrcene. Well, so does cannabis. Citrus fruit has limonene, and cannabis does too. Conifer, like so if you know that pine smell, beta pinene, alpha pinene, that is also in cannabis. So cannabis has over 100 cannabinoids and hundreds of terpenes. And so it's just this rich, almost superfood, if you will, or super plant. And that's why it sounds kind of weird when you say it can do all these things, but because it's so rich in cannabinoids and terpenes, which have all of these healing properties, that it is actually a super plant. One last thing I wanted to mention is called the entourage effect, or some people are now calling it the ensemble effect. And this is how cannabinoids and terpenes work with each other together, and they also kind of work against each other, so that the terms are synergistic and antagonistic. One really good example is THC. If that's what is altering your perception and getting you high, CBD tempers that, and it can sort of kind of block the THC. So if you get way too high off of THC and you take some CBD, it can bring that down because it's a little antagonistic. But the flip side is, if you have CBD for pain, it will work better on your pain, or should work better, with a little bit of THC. So it's got both sides to that. I'm going to turn it over now to June. That was a little bit of a, let's just run through that as fast as we can to give you some background. Know that you are going to get a recording the week following this webinar, and you'll be able to review that again. Plus our book, we really go through a lot of it in our book. But June, I'm just going to turn it over to you, and you just let me know when you want me to turn the slide, and then I'll pop in with a question or two that comes to my mind, if anything. But I know you've got a lot of information to convey right now, and I'm sure everyone listening right now has a lot of questions for you toward the end of the webinar. So
yeah, that sounds great. You can go ahead and switch to the slides. That's fine. That way we have a basis, and people can take notes or have something to refer to.
Okay, excellent. So you just let me know when you want me to switch the slides. So.
Go ahead, you can switch.
Oh, off of this one? Oh, okay. Well, just letting you know then that.
Oh, for the history?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to talk? Why don't you talk about history? You're great at history.
Yeah. I'll do that. Well, I just pulled this from our book, actually. We did a lot of research for the book, and the back of the book, it talks about a lot of the places where we got the information. But this slide was just to let you all know that there is a lot of historical reports and evidence, all the way dating back to ancient times, when I believe some of the Egyptian medical documents on papyrus. No, I forgot to write that down. There are certain papyrus scrolls that talk about medicine from Egyptian times, and there are references to cannabis, and in particular for women, being used by women the term was to cure wrath and grief. So for sort of emotional support and mood support. And also the Old English herbarium was recommending a mixture of cannabis and lard as a salve to rub on women's swollen, painful breasts after birth. So cannabis has been used during pregnancy, during labor, postpartum, throughout history. And there's an anecdote about Queen Victoria being prescribed by her physician cannabis to relieve menstrual cramps. So it's not just history, though. Anybody who has tried some of these things knows it can be a mood lifter, it can be a pain reliever, and it can address cramps and other discomforts that come along with PMS and later perimenopause and menopause. So this is not just based in science and medicine. It's been used for centuries. All right, now I'll move to the next one. Go for it.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, so I see a lot of women that come in asking how cannabis can help with both PMS, from terrible menstrual cramps, all the way to perimenopausal insomnia and hot flashes. And it can help with both because we women actually have a very special relationship with cannabis. Because of our estrogen, of our own natural hormone, has this really intricate interaction with the endocannabinoid system. So when we take plant-based cannabis, we can also affect the endocannabinoid system, and it will help with pain and inflammation during PMS. Oftentimes my patients might need to take a little more or a little less, right before their period. It can also help with that insomnia. I'm going through that perimenopausal insomnia right now, and it's like some days I can sleep straight through the night, some days I don't. So there's really no rhyme or reason. And that cannabinoids can really help put you to sleep and stay asleep, so you're not waking up at 2 and 3 and 4 a.m. With your hot flashes.
Can I ask you one question really quick? You just mentioned something about sleep and cannabis. There are some reports I've been reading that THC does not get you into REM sleep as well as other things might. I find that I'm very rested if I do take some THC, usually through like a mint or a light edible prior to sleep. Is there, and have you heard that from anybody, that it's not always helping them? Because it helps me. So
yeah, so sleep, if you take too much THC, it actually can interrupt the dream states of sleep. So you actually don't go through all of the REM stages, so it's not a deep sleep. So you feel like you fell asleep, but you don't feel as restored. And this is if you use too much THC.
Got it. Okay.
Clinically, I have found that patients that microdose with THC can get a really, really good night's sleep. But the studies are showing that high doses of CBD seems to help people sleep more consistently. But again, that really differs from patient to patient. It differs from the spectrum of cannabinoids that are using. Are you using more CBN products, which are also very sedating? Are you supplementing with melatonin or valerian root? So things like that really play a role in how effective CBD or THC or the other cannabinoids can work with insomnia. What a great question.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, so I'm taking 5 milligrams, so I am not microdosing, and that's why I guess I'm doing pretty well with that. So thank you. Let's talk estrogen sensitivity.
Yes. So estrogen, the great thing about us women is that estrogen will make us more sensitive to cannabis. So we don't need a whole lot. A little goes a long way. And it's mostly the THC. The THC really interacts with the hormones quite a bit. So our cycle can influence our high, our euphoria. What is interesting, in Washington State University, the researchers found that women experience the most effects from THC when the estrogen has peaked and it's beginning to fall. So this usually happens mid-cycle, like a day or two before you ovulate, if you're still menstruating. So you might find that when you are taking cannabis, you might need a little bit less THC at that time because you're so sensitive to it. And a lot of my patients, I will have them, sort of a journal, when their cycle is, what their symptoms that they're trying to work on, whether it's maybe a migraine before or PMS symptoms, then they can adjust the cannabinoids accordingly, depending on their cycle.
Okay. And so I was thinking then, and this is an interesting conversation that eventually we'll have with Erica, because this is the work that she does. When you no longer have a period, and in a sense no longer have these overt cycles, we still are having cycles, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So you're still having, there's an increase in estrogen and progesterone. It just might not be as regular, and you might not be able to time it as well. So a lot of women who take THC will notice that their luteinizing hormones levels will increase a little bit. So THC and CBD can actually adjust your own hormones. It can improve progesterone levels. And sometimes this is what you need when you're in perimenopause or menopausal, and there is some hormone fluctuation, all but, maybe it'll be on the lower end. Taking cannabinoids can actually help you with the symptoms. That's why it helps you with the hot flashes. That's why it can help you with the insomnia.
Got it. Interesting. Okay. Here we have something that we all realize with perimenopause and menopause. Suddenly our vagina is not the vagina we knew. if that makes sense, if anyone can relate. But cannabis has a pretty powerful effect on our vaginal tissues as well.
Yes, exactly. The one thing that the main question that I get from a lot of my female patients, both with or without their period, menopausal or perimenopausal, is actually vaginal dryness, vaginal itching, and vaginal sensitivity. So it actually doesn't, you don't have to be in full-blown menopause to have the irritation in your vaginal canal or in your labia, because estrogen and progesterone fluctuates. You can have extreme vaginal dryness when your estrogen levels are low, right after your period, or you might feel that, during times of ovulation, that's when your vagina feels the most healthiest. When you're in menopausal, it might feel dry and sort of just almost this like taut, but very thin, sensitive feeling. And cannabis, there's many great products out there, and you mentioned one in the very beginning, can help you bring blood flow to the area. It can really bring back that youthfulness of the skin, the elasticity. It doesn't feel so friable. Sex won't be so painful. It won't be so itchy.
So friable, just that was something that you had talked about a lot, and I finally said, "What is friable?" It's thinning, right? And it's that very thinning and the friction that causes tearing,
so a lot,
like
exactly.
micro-tears.
So micro tears. So like, let's say you have painful sex, and the next day it just feels like it's on fire, it's burning, and you're bathing yourself, and even the water touching it, or maybe your underwear it'll feel like it's burning right through your underwear. It's because that skin is so sensitive and thin. Feels like it's chafed, almost like sunburn.
Yes. I have to say that, and I've written about this a lot, so I'm okay talking about it. That for me, the painful sex has been a major issue, and and I've talked to a lot of women about it, and it's something that you don't talk about, but then once you
Mm-hmm.
bring it up, everyone talks about it, and everyone has experienced it, especially at menopause. And for me, a combination of THC as a topical for the numbing effect, and CBD for the anti-inflammation, and then a really nice lubricant, one I found that's not related at all to cannabis. It's actually from the kiwi vine, is called Silk, SYLK. That is like the triumvirate, the victorious triumvirate. That is the combination, for at least for me, that seems to really work. So I get the benefits of the cannabinoids, like going right into the mucous membranes. So the vagina is sort of like your nasal membranes. Can you explain that a little bit in terms of the absorption of topicals in your sort of vaginal canal and your vaginal labia, etc.? Can you explain a little bit more about that, how that works?
Yeah, well, the skin is so thin, so it's like a sponge. So you can really absorb quite a bit. So you have to be careful, what you're putting there. You don't want a lot of fragrances. You don't want a lot of synthetic products. Certain tampons, certain maxi pads can irritate the area. So you make sure that you find a good quality product that can, not only help you, I think, with menopause, but just vaginal health in general. I think we don't talk about it enough, and you can use it as a preventative, even before menopause.
Well, a lot of these products, like the High on Love, there's several other products that are on the market. Quim is another product. They don't just address sort of your sexual aid or assistance, but they're also addressing overall sexual health and just the general wellness and maintenance of your vagina. So I think a lot of these products that are coming out now are created by women, specifically because we all have been experiencing this, and we really need to support these women-owned companies that are creating these products specifically for us.
Yeah, and oftentimes when we go to the doctor, they misdiagnose and say, you have a yeast infection. It's itchy, you have a yeast infection. It's dry, it's travel, you have a yeast infection. They give you an antifungal, and that just makes it worse.
Oh my God.
That makes it worse because the flora gets destroyed. You're actually better taking a probiotic. You're actually better using these types of cannabinoid products. So you actually get misdiagnosed when you go to the doctor and say, hey, I have an itchy vagina.
Oh, well, and I also want to mention, when you do take these products, read the labels, because some of us are more sensitive to other ingredients that are included in those products. So maybe the THC is not bothering you. Maybe the CBD is actually quite soothing, but they also may be putting something else in those products. So just make sure, sort of do that patch test, if you will, and also do that perusal of the label and all ingredients to make sure there's not something else there that you might be reactive to. So just a little caveat. I just switched over to our next piece of this estrogen cannabis puzzle. Maybe explain a little bit more about the estrogen receptor.
Yeah, so the estrogen receptor, very complicated receptor, is a protein that's inside the cells of our female reproductive system. And there's certain, pharmaceutical meds, there's nutraceuticals and natural supplements target these receptors to treat bone loss, osteoporosis, and other endocrine female disorders. What's interesting about cannabidiol, CBD, is CBD binds to this estrogen receptor. So when you're using CBD, you can think of it as I always think of it as a preventative or a nice supplement for female health and wellness. So you're not only using it for symptomatic relief, but you're using it as preventative relief. Great anti-inflammatory. It works on anandamide, as you talked about anandamide in our natural cannabis molecule with our body. And apigen, I'd like to mention, is a phytoestrogen in cannabis. Apigen is a flavonoid, and there's actually 3 flavonoids found in cannabis: quercetin, apigen, and canaflavin A. And just to give you background, flavonoids, and you might have heard that before, but it's basically plant chemicals. They're a group of phytonutrients, and they're found in almost all fruits and vegetables. And that's what's responsible for the vivid colors in fruits and vegetables. But there's so much great nutrients in flavonoids, and these are found in cannabis as well. And so this apigen, which is found in a lot of cannabis plants, binds to the estrogen receptor. So you're looking at a flavonoid called apigen. You're looking at the CBD, which is found in cannabis as well. These are just signals. You can see how it can affect female health.
And I was just thinking about flavonoids. I'm wondering if from here on out we should also mention flavonoids, because we mentioned cannabinoids, we mentioned terpenes, but flavonoids seem, especially for women, like it's just such an important component, chemical component of cannabis that affects us. So that just was a light bulb that popped up when you were explaining that.
Yeah, when we're talking about cannabis, it's a plant-based medicine. So we're really always think of it as a plant compound. And when you mention apigen, it's found in parsley, celery, chamomile tea. So not just cannabis. This is, the wonderful thing about this plant compound that Mother Nature has gifted us.
So I put this in as well. And again, some of this is not related to cannabis, it's related to our bodies, and yet there is a cannabis connection there. So how do I pronounce this?
Estradiol.
Estradiol.
Yeah. So again, it's just wonderful that you put that slide up. It just shows us the relationship between estrogen, estradiol, which is the steroid-like hormone, that like our major female sex hormone, how that's involved with CBD, the cannabinoid receptors, estrogen receptors. There's a really great interplay between them both. And we have to remember that we're very complex, and the CBD might have different altering effects on our hormones and our estrogen, and our cycle has different, or no cycle has different interactions as well. So we just have to it's customizable medicine. We have to really figure out, what is our own microdose? When should we take it? How much should we take it? And I think you talk about a dosing protocol at the end of the talk, and we can review that as well.
So next, luteinizing hormone levels?
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. So THC can decrease our LSH levels in women during childbearing years, and it can affect fertility. So sometimes if you're using too much THC and you're trying to get pregnant, sometimes that can get in the way. I always have my female patients, if they're trying, they're having issues with fertility, vitamin D3 is a wonderful thing to supplement with. And acupuncture is actually a wonderful thing to try to use if you're trying to get pregnant. But you can see how THC, basically another cannabinoid, how that affects female hormones, our LSH hormones.
Excellent. And you did mention anandamide. Tell us a little more about anandamide, because this is pretty interesting.
Yes. So the thing about anandamide is during our menstrual cycle, or if we don't have menstrual cycle, our anandamide levels will fluctuate. So let's say we're talking about women who still have a period, anandamide levels will actually peak during ovulation. And the anandamide is basically our own natural cannabinoid molecule. It's known as the bliss molecule. So it makes us feel really wonderful. And this, usually when we're ovulating, so mid-cycle, this explains why most of us feel fantastic during that time. So we have this peak in estrogen level, we have this peak in anandamide level. So we feel really great during ovulation. And then when we get our period, or before we get our period, our estrogen levels are really low. Our anandamide levels decrease a little bit. And that's probably what contributes to, some of our PMS symptoms. Exercise increases our anandamide levels naturally. Acupuncture increases our anandamide levels. Meditation also increases our anandamide levels. What I do want to mention, I don't know if you have it in the next slide, is that estrogen will inhibit FAH activity. And I don't want to get too much into the science.
Yep, we actually have a couple of slides on that. So I'm going to move forward, but I put this picture of chocolate on there on purpose as well, because we were talking about other plants and other foods that have phytocannabinoids, and cacao has phytocannabinoid-like chemical compounds that affect our endocannabinoid system. And this could explain why dark chocolate can be extremely appealing for women and feels so good, because it could help release anandamide.
Right.
So
that's why we feel calm. Actually, we can have a piece of chocolate and feel calm because it helps it boost up that anandamide, that bliss molecule.
All right. Well, I do love my dark chocolate. So this is the one I think that you were talking about, right? The FAH activity?
Yeah. So
okay.
FAH breaks down anandamide, and anandamides are the bliss molecule. So when you're looking at estrogen, our hormone, it actually inhibits that enzyme, that FAAH. So if it inhibits that enzyme, more anandamide is floating through our body. And that's the anandamide, again, is that bliss molecule. It keeps us calm. It keeps our nervous system, cool, calm, and collect, basically. And so you can see here, estrogen, again, has a very versatile interaction with anandamide. So you see, yes, the endocannabinoid system, estrogen, CBD, luteinizing hormone. You can really begin to see how we can use this plant-based medicine for women's health.
We have just a few more slides on this topic, and then we'll get to our questions. So we have plenty of time for questions.
Our uterus, totally just chock full of cannabinoid receptors. I mean, it's like a galaxy in our uterus. So when women take cannabis for PMS, for cramping, it makes sense why it would work.
Excellent. And now you gave me the notes to put the senile vagina, and I just couldn't wait to hear from you to find out what is this. And you like my photo that I picked?
Oh my God. How did you find that photo?
You know me.
How creative.
Thank you. Thank you. Tell me more about this quick.
So when our hormones start to decrease, so when we're looking at menopausal women or even perimenopausal women, or women that have had a hysterectomy or oophorectomy, they've removed the ovaries, they've removed the uterus. That's why when you go to an endocrinologist or OBGYN, they recommend like a hormone patch, or they might recommend bioidenticals to try and keep the vagina healthy, right? So and that goes back to that friability, the thinness of the vagina, the vagina losing elasticity. It just sort of tends to, that's a perfect picture. It just sort of wilts.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry now.
And you put down atrophy and cell death. I mean, it sounds so morbid, but
really does.
But there are things that we can do to maintain good vaginal health, and cannabis is one of those things we can use.
Yeah. And I want to also mention a lot of this can be topicals, but it can also be taken internally and have that effect on your endocannabinoid system, which overall, when that is in balance, all parts of our bodies can thrive more, can be healthier, correct?
Yeah.
So the last piece of this is keeping track. You did mention something about journals, and that is something we talk about in our book, the importance of keeping track. And in a sense, you're keeping track of two things here. You're keeping track of your cycle, if you have a cycle as the traditional cycle we talk about. And you also keep track of how, what you're taking, how much you're taking, how it affects you, how you feel before, how you feel after. All of this is really important because, again, it's plant medicine, and this kind of tracking that you do will help you get to the place where you can finally just see your notes that say, I'm feeling better, I'm feeling relief, this is how much I took, this is the product I took. and then you're honing in on your dosing. And we didn't have dosing on here. We did an entire webinar on dosing, which is the previous month. You can always find that on our website. But keeping track of those doses that you're taking, starting low and going slowly to more and more until you hit that place that feels right for you.
And we do talk about this. Yeah. And we do talk about this in our book. Actually, there's a section on, and if you can put, do you have a slide of the cover of our book? Because I have a few folks asking what the cover of the book. Okay, you'll hold it up.
I'll hold it up again because we're about to go to video. In fact, it's question and answer time. So let's go to video. So I'm going to remove the slides to everybody. We're going to come back live and in person on video. And I'll hold up the book right now while June is putting her video up. And Eric is going to help us go through questions now from all of you. Hopefully, yeah, I do see a bunch of questions in the Q&A box.
So cannabis and CBD for health and wellness, and that can be found on Amazon.
And any bookseller, really.
It doesn't allow me to start the video. It says that the
Erica,
host
Yeah,
stopped it.
For some reason, I'm looking for that button. I don't know why I can't find it either. That's weird. Okay, hold on. Give me a second.
Right.
Here we go. Wait.
You got it. I'm gonna get into the questions really quick and see. I'd like to know if CBD can help with. Here's the question. I'd like to know if CBD. Hi, June. Can help with osteopenia and osteoporosis. I have osteopenia too. So that's a really, really good question, and I'm on the edge of my seat to find out.
Are you taking things for the osteopenia, like Fosamax or some prescription medication?
I personally am not. Stacy, I don't know if you are, but I am not.
So what we do know is that there are cannabinoid receptors on the cells that make the bones. So these are called CB2 receptors, and these receptors stimulate bone formation. So the animal studies, so we only have preclinical studies, but it does show that that a synthetic CB2 agonist rescues the bone loss in animals with their ovaries removed. So in essence, yes, cannabinoids can help stimulate bone formation, and that's shown in animal studies.
But is it CBD specifically? Because I do know in our book we list several other cannabinoids that research is now showing is stimulating bone growth. But what about CBD in particular?
So for me, when you're taking cannabis, I'm always for taking a full spectrum cannabinoids. I know we keep talking about CBD right now because it is sort of the hot topic. You know, there's CBD and in your available mascara now in Sephora, I think. So
toothpaste and shampoo. I know.
So really a full spectrum cannabinoid product.
Yeah, like a tincture, a full spectrum tincture, full spectrum versus broad spectrum. How would you explain that? The difference? Full would have the THC, where broad would be from hemp derived, so low to no THC.
Yeah, I always get confused with that.
I've been practicing this, full versus broad. I've been practicing on that. Here's one. Any thoughts on fibroids and cannabis for treating pain and healing? Fibroids.
The main problem with the fibroids is the bleeding, right? So you want to get the bleeding under control. And it's tricky. It depends on how big the fibroids are, if they need to be surgically removed. But a lot of my patients that experience fibroids really have that really unending bleeding. And that's really what gets in the way. You know, you could become anemic, you can become extremely fatigued. So I think the cannabis can help offset maybe some of the pain and discomfort that you're having, but really seeing an OBGYN to figure out what to do with the fibroid is key.
Here's another one. Hot flashes. Right when they're happening, can you take some form of cannabis to alleviate? And then on a longer term, how can you address hot flashes? with cannabis?
Yeah, so a lot of my patients will take a CBD dominant, I would say CBD dominant formula for prevention of the intensity and the frequency of hot flashes. But once you get into it, I mean, it's still, the jury's still out. I have some patients that say they microdose with like 1 milligram THC quick dissolving tablet, and it helps. Others say it doesn't help. So I think it really just depends on your own body. You'll have to experiment with that. I don't know anything that's, quick and easy for the hot flash in the moment.
How about any information on the effects on PCOS? And could you tell us what's PCOS?
So PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, I have a lot of patients that will, women with PCOS oftentimes feel like they're in a constant state of inflammation. You'll see it in skin eruptions, cystic acne. You'll feel, it almost feels like you're have an irritable bowel. So your GI system, your stomach, your digestion might really feel like it's off. There's pain, of course, in the pelvic region, depending on your cycle or lack of cycle, irregularity. So again, the CBD dominant products will take away that inflammation. A lot of my PCOS patients love the CBD topical, the skin topical products, because it does help with the cystic eruption of the acne as well.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a very detailed one. HRT. So she is now 3 weeks into HRT, estradiol patch, vaginal cream, progesterone, and testosterone cream.
Mm-hmm.
Could she now be more sensitive to THC? She hasn't tried it since she started this HRT.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There you go. Well,
on hormone replacement therapy will feel very, very sensitive to the THC. It's almost like their first time again, if you will. If you remember having your first drink of glass of wine or having your first experiment with cannabis and you just feel knocked off your feet, you just have to take it very slow, start with a very low dose, because your body's, not only is the hormone replacement therapy changing your own body, but the receptors are sort of just, opening and closing. Receptors are like a sponge. So you have to really find out what your baseline is. And patients on HRT takes a couple of months to figure out what their baseline is. So they might have hot flashes, but then they might have no hot flashes, and their body starts to go through that, trying to find equilibrium. And so that's why the THC can be, it can get you actually pretty heart palpitations. You can get really paranoid if you take too much.
so there's a question here. Maybe she's going to be able to type in. It says cannabis and vagina. What are good suggestions to help? Suppositories. I don't know if it means vaginal pain, but if you recall, June, didn't we just see an email or a comment from a woman who said she was so sensitive that when she was taking THC, cannabis, and had sex, that she got shooting pains, that she was just that sensitive. Can you remember, didn't we just see that and you said that you would try to address it here? Do you recall?
Oh, I do. I actually have it in my my Instagram message. I can pull that up.
Okay, pull that.
So,
I can. So yeah, go ahead. Go ahead if you want.
Why don't you talk about the suppositories again that are available, the female products that you recommend?
Okay, well, I do know this is the hard part. If it has THC, it's state by state. I do know there's a product, Incredibles, that my business partner Ashley swears by. She says are absolutely amazing. We have a review on Ellementa.com, which she wrote, very candid review. Really swears by it. I believe that Foria is a well-known brand that does on the THC front in certain states. I think California, possibly also Colorado, I believe. They have suppositories. There are also CBD suppositories that you could get in more places, but it's the THC ones that truly can help with pain. And I remember, I believe you told me this at one of our other webinars, why it doesn't actually get you high. It does enter into your bloodstream, but it sort of stays, suppositories will stay down in sort of the lower body region and can be very, very effective, going straight to some of that pain and discomfort, particularly around uterine pain, ovarian, ovary pain, and such. Was that right? Did I give you enough time to find that other thing as well? But did I give good information? That's the important part.
Yeah, so I found the question.
Okay.
So some, and this is actually very common. So some women that take too much THC will find a hypersensitivity. So they actually feel like there is even increased burning sensation or increased numbing sensation. It feels like pins and needles. It feels like little knives in the vaginal area, in the clitoris, in the labia, in the canal. And this is actually really common among my fibromyalgia patients, my patients with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. If they take too much THC, it actually throws them off the other end, and it'll actually make things worse. And that's, again, has to do with our estrogen. So a little THC goes a long way. So when you're looking at strains that are high in THC, you might want to temper that, again, with a CBD. So there are strains that have a little bit more balance of CBD and THC, and the CBD will temper that harsh effect of the THC, of a too high THC strain.
Okay. Thank you. So here's another 43-year-old woman, naturally low in estrogen, experiencing strong mood swings. How can she use cannabis to help navigate this? And are tinctures better for this?
So women that are naturally low in estrogen, so I actually look at things like their thyroid levels, and I actually recommend different nutritional supplements, and you can private message me. I look at your lab reports, so I'm looking at LSH levels, FSH levels, estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, and I'll actually recommend other things besides cannabis. The cannabis might work a little bit, but you definitely need a lot more natural compounds.
Somebody did ask, back to an earlier question, what's osteopenia? And the gal who asked about osteopenia and osteoporosis said she's also not taking anything for it. She's not taking anything for it. So what is osteopenia? Could you just define that?
So bone loss. Yeah, so bone loss, that can be measured through a DEXA scan. So when you see your doctor, and depends on history too, if you've gone through chemotherapy or radiation, if you've gone through trauma, where you've had physical trauma, where you've maybe gone through an accident and you've had multiple surgeries, that can also increase your chances of bone loss, bone strength. And oftentimes doctors will recommend like a prescription medication like Fosamax or something like that, or once a month you can take it, but that has a lot of side effects and a lot of patients don't like taking that. So I actually recommend a mineral building, selenium. I also recommend cannabis. I recommend D3. I recommend a plant-based diet that is rich, colorful plant-based diet. Of course, exercise, weight-bearing exercise.
Yeah. Oh, here's another question. Is smoking cannabis give you the same effects as a topical or lube to get to those estrogen receptors?
When you smoke cannabis, you get like a 90% lung perfusion. So that's why it works so well. It works quickly and it gets absorbed and it's all bioavailable. But not a lot of people enjoy inhaling, whether it's irritation, maybe asthma, maybe you have children and you don't want to smoke in front of them and you want to do something a little more discreet. So you can do a tincture and edible, which will take quite some time for it to work. And then depending on your liver enzymes and your metabolism, it might not work as effectively for you. So again, experimenting is always a great thing.
So there's a couple of different questions that are very specific to cities or states, and we're not going to be able to answer what's available in your area, but you can definitely get in touch with Ellementa. We have leaders in different cities who are pretty familiar with what you can or cannot purchase in your area. A couple of more questions. I'm in perimenopause, nearing menopause. My doctor has me taking BHR, how will cannabis affect my body or with the added hormones, BHR. BHR is what?
So I'm perimenopause and my doctor has me taking, so bioidentical hormone replacement.
Oh, bioidentical hormone replacement. Got it.
How will cannabis affect my body with the other added hormones? We just don't know. Everyone's different.
Mm-hmm. And I think it kind of addresses the other thing. If you're having additional hormones, there is a chance for an increased sensitivity, needing less, more intense effects.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody asked, can cannabis help with mood swings? Short answer, yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. A couple of more. I've noticed that full spectrum works much better for me than CBD isolate. Yes. But if I have to drug test, I might fail. Is there another effective formula that might work without having THC?
What's interesting is some of my patients are failing drug tests with just CBD isolate.
CBD, yeah. Mm-hmm. I know the tests are changing. The tests are you just don't know what they're looking for in the test. It's so hard. We get this question almost at every single gathering that we hold is, will I test positive? Will I test positive with the topical? Will I test positive with CBD isolate? We can't guarantee anything at all. I mean, it is still considered obviously federally illegal, and people are going to be testing for it, and people misunderstand what it is. So that's a tough one.
So what I've done for my patients preemptively, so sometimes employment, if they're looking for employment, they know they're going to get drug tested or they don't have the 30-day window to sort of detox, is to get a note from your physician, be upfront rather than if you know you're going to test positive. I would just say, here's a doctor's note. I do take, cannabinoids. I'm being monitored by my MD. And this is the diagnosis. This is why I take it. You don't necessarily have to go into the diagnosis, but if you say you're being monitored by an MD and this is what you're taking, it's a heck of a lot better than testing positive and then having to backtrack.
Right.
And then it makes it easier on everyone.
We have a lot of other questions, clearly, and a lot of them are very personal to that individual. So what I want to say is that Dr. Junella Chin is a practicing physician, and she does take patients. So drjunechin.com, you could reach out to her because some of you are asking some very, very specific things, and having this kind of guidance on a personal level, one-to-one, and having much more of your medical history in her hands is going to be more beneficial to you. Plus, we're running out of time. I mean, we could stay here forever. This has been so full of great information. I'm going to share my screen and we can keep our video on because the last few things are just our closing. Obviously, we're picking a winner because I know that Erica already has a name. So hold on a sec, though. Hold on a sec. We'll be right with you. I have to press a couple of buttons again, as usual. And, I was also going to hold up some other products, but let's share my screen. And since you can also see me and the screen, here are some of the Toca products and the High on Love pink products. This one in particular is As Seen in Allure. I don't know if you can tell that it's hot pink with gold. They're gorgeous packaging. Also very beautiful is our Giovanna tea. So you'll be receiving, whoever the winner is, you'll be receiving, as long as you're not in Canada, all products shipped separately from each of these wonderful women-owned companies. We will make it up to you if you are in Canada. If you're in the US, you will receive this is more hemp seed oil based for US based, just so you know. Okay, winner.
Our winner tonight is Jean S. Jean S. You will be getting an email from me tomorrow.
All right, Jean.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Everybody, yes, I saw this question several times. You will get a recording, but please know it takes us a while to do some editing to it. We just cut off these ends that you saw earlier and that you're going to see as soon as we close this. So we do a little bit of editing and get it ready for you. And then about a week later in your email box, you will receive a link directly to this recording that you can watch over and over again. back to Ellementa, just want you to know you can stay in touch with us. We have these conversations all the time in person at gatherings. We have private groups on Facebook. If you went to elementa.com/groups, you can find those. They're state-based because obviously there's so many differences state by state with cannabis. The gatherings, elementa.com/gatherings to see if there's one near you. And then also on social media. And June, you're at drjunechin.com. Where else are you in social media for them to connect with you?
On Instagram, I'm Dr. June Chin, and on Facebook, I'm MedLeaf RX. I do video consults. I consult with people all around the globe. I'd be happy to do that, or you can feel free to email me.
Excellent, thank you. All right, and we have a couple of more webinars this month. It's chock full October, and we're going to be talking with Lizzie Post. She's the great-great-granddaughter of Emily Post, who did the etiquette books throughout decades of etiquette. And Lizzie has written a book on higher etiquette, cannabis etiquette. And I've met her before, and she's lovely. This is going to be great. She's smart, funny, and I can't wait to talk about her book. So we're doing this every month. We're doing a virtual book club with wellness authors. The first several are going to be cannabis related, and then we'll move on to other wellness topics as well. Then on the 30th, CBD and your pets with a holistic vet out of Colorado, Dr. Angie. So elementa.com/webinars, you can get links to both of those. They're free, just like this, full of lots of great information. The book club is a little more casual, and the no slideshow, just us talking about a book. And then this webinar is just a bonus webinar for October. Special offers, you're going to get this by email along with the recording, so don't worry if you don't jot it down right now. But both of our sponsors have offered discounts, so you'll see that, and if you order their products online, you can put in the codes that you see here and that you'll get in your email and get discounts off of their lovely products. Thank you everyone for being here. We really appreciate it. We love doing these. We hear back from a lot of you that it has really helped. That we're talking about topics that not everyone is talking about. We're focusing in on female health and the female experience as caregivers. This is just a real delight for us. We love doing this. And thank you, June, so much for your incredible information. And also, thanks to Erica for the magic behind the scenes.
Thank you so much. It's such a great time.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.